What do we need to get right? We don't, Rachel, actually have a carbon price. We don't speak the same language. So if you're a financial operator, if you're a country, you report different metrics. What do you want to see in the next couple of weeks?
Well, here's the bottom line. Everywhere in the world, the challenge is the same. We need to make sharp cuts in our heat trapping emissions. Right now, the world is far off track from where we need to be in terms of what the science is showing is necessary. Within this decade, we have to make a sharp turn away from fossil fuels. And that is a key metric of success here in Glasgow. Can nations step up? Can world leaders step up to really bend that emissions curve, not just in 2050, but within this decade as well? And then the other piece is, what are we going to do to help countries around the world, especially climate vulnerable countries, cope with the impacts of climate change, those devastating impacts that are already here and now, here in the US and around the world.
And Rachel, can you talk about those near and long-term goals that you outlined in a new blog post? I mean, what is it that you want to hear from leaders on both fronts?
Well, what the science is showing is necessary is that globally we have to cut emissions in half by 2030. And that means the major emitting countries, the richer nations that are responsible for the lion's share of the heat trapping emissions in the atmosphere, they really need to step up and do more. The United States has offered 50 to 52% below 2005 levels by 2030. That's an important commitment, but now we need to enact the policies that's actually going to deliver on that. And that's why the Build Back Better Act that's currently under consideration in Congress is so important. China needs to do more in terms of turning down coal. We need to hear more from Japan, Australia, Brazil. Basically, every country needs to step up so that collectively we can meet our global climate goals.
Rachel, I'm wondering also, is this just about the governments themselves? What coming out of COP26 can also push the private sector to do more?
It's been really interesting since the Paris Agreement was signed in 2015. We've seen the private sector really take this on as a big priority. Part of the reason is that renewable energy costs are dropping dramatically. They're becoming cheaper everywhere in the world. It's a no-brainer to switch from dirty, polluting fossil fuels to renewable energy. And businesses have really taken that on. Many businesses, not all, but many businesses have. In terms of investing in renewables. They're also orienting more and more to recognizing that there's a big market here to be made in terms of selling electric vehicles, batteries, wind and solar components. But at the same time, we have the fossil fuel industry that has been doubling down on investments. We are seeing the fossil fuel industry play a very nefarious role in policy right here in the US as well as around the world. They're continuing to expand production of these fossil fuels at record levels. And this year, we're going to see the second largest rise in carbon emissions happen. It's going to happen this year in 2021, the second largest annual increase. And that is very troubling given where we need to be from a climate perspective.
Rachel, I mean, the other thing that's very troubling is that actually we have a lot more demand for ESG products, and yet emissions keep on going up. So if you're a scientist, would you say, well, like my 9-year-old actually told me as on my way to Glasgow, well, just stop the factories. Like, what do we need to know, or what do we need to do, for example, on the transition? Do offsets even work?
We have no global atmospheric space for just moving the deck chairs around. Offsets are not enough. We actually need a genuine transition away from fossil fuels. And that's why aspirational net zero goals for 2050 sound good, but they're not enough. They're not going to shift businesses right now in the near term. We have the solutions within our reach. That is the reality. We have these cheap, renewable forms of energy that we should be shifting towards. We shouldn't be subsidizing fossil fuels. We need to be putting pressure on fossil fuel companies to genuinely shift their business approach. Not just words, not just offsets, not just empty promises, but a true shift away from the production and the investments in fossil fuel infrastructure. It's possible, it's within our reach, and we owe it to our children and grandchildren, just like your daughter, to do the right thing now.